She said I was too poor to dream big, laughed at my apartment, mocked my ambition, told her friends I'd never make it out of the ground floor. So I didn't argue, didn't beg. I just disappeared and came back as the man who bought the penthouse right above hers. Now, every time she opens her window, she looks up and remembers the boy she once called a joke now lives above her regrets. I used to think dreams were loud things, neon-colored and booming with applause, but sometimes dreams grow in silence. Mine started in a room so small, the bed touched the door and the kitchen was just a microwave. My name's Jordan Hale, and at 24 I had nothing flashy to my name except hope, and a dream to design buildings that could touch the sky. At the time I was dating Vanessa Monroe, polished, poised, perfect. We met at an architecture exhibit. She was laughing at a poorly executed scale model. I was quietly sketching in a corner. Somehow we clicked, but in hindsight, maybe she just liked the idea of being admired by someone who didn't move in her world. Her father was in finance. Her circle was champagne and city views. Mine was instant noodles and second-hand laptops. Still, for a while, it worked. She said she liked my humble grind, said I was real, said she admired how I dreamed without money. But admiration turned into pity. And then pity became poison. It started small, jokes wrapped in smiles. You still use prepaid data? That's cute. I could never live in a place with wall paint that old. But hey, struggle is character building, right? I'd laugh. A little tight, a little bruised, but I told myself she didn't mean harm until the day I met her friends. It was a birthday dinner. Vanessa had picked the spot, a rooftop bar with drinks more expensive than my week's groceries. I arrived in my best thrifted blazer, shoes polished, hair combed back like I was presenting at a job interview. But from the moment I sat down, I felt it. The glances, the raised eyebrows, the questions masked as compliments. So, what does an architect in progress actually do? Wow, you still use pencils. That's so vintage. Vanessa, you're so generous dating someone still chasing his dream. Most girls would have moved on by now. Vanessa didn't defend me. She laughed with them, and I'll never forget what she said when the bill arrived. I reached for my wallet, even though my half of the table barely touched the appetizers, and Vanessa stopped me with a laugh. Jordan, relax. You can contribute once you build that dream skyscraper you keep talking about. The table erupted in laughter. I smiled. Inside, I felt like I'd been gutted, but I let it go. Because love, right? Because maybe she didn't realize how deep her words cut. Because I wanted to prove that someday my dreams wouldn't be punchlines, they'd be skylines. But Vanessa wasn't done. A week later, she invited me to a party at her friend's new penthouse, a glass box 40 floors up overlooking the city. I showed up, gift in hand, nerves tight. Vanessa met me in the hallway and scanned me like an airport security check. "You wore that?" she asked, voice just low enough to hurt. "Don't worry, just stand near the windows. Look artistic." Inside, the party buzzed with money. People in tailored suits talked about equity and exits. I tried to mingle, but I was invisible, until I wasn't. Vanessa's friend, tipsy and cruel, asked, "So you're the architect dreamer? Heard you want a penthouse like this someday." Before I could answer, Vanessa quipped, "He doesn't just want it, he sketches it between job hunts." The room laughed again, but this time I didn't smile. Something inside me cracked. Not loud, not explosive, just permanent. I stayed for 15 more minutes, enough to not make a scene, enough to be forgotten. Then I left. Outside, the city lights shimmered. Above me, that very penthouse glowed with the kind of warmth I'd never been allowed into. I looked up, not in longing, but in understanding. She didn't believe in me. She didn't even see me, and she thought I'd never climb high enough to matter. But in that moment, standing on the curb with nothing but a sketchbook in my bag and pain in my chest, I made a decision. I wasn't going to fight for her love. I wasn't going to win her back. I was going to rise so quietly that the next time she looked up from her penthouse window, she'd have to tilt her head to see where I stood. Because she said I was too poor to dream big, and I believed her. Until that night, when you finally stop trying to prove yourself to someone who never planned to believe in you. You build differently. I didn't post a dramatic quote, didn't write a "watch me now" caption. I just disappeared. From her world, her followers, her rooftop parties, and reappeared in mine. The first few months were rough. I took a contract gig designing custom backyard studios. Nothing fancy, just sheds with style. But I treated every shed like it was a skyscraper. Every beam aligned, every sketch precise, every customer impressed. Word spread. Backyard Studios by Jordan Hale. It wasn't a brand, it wasn't a firm. It was just me, a folding table, and a belief that if I could build small things beautifully, the big things would come. I lived cheap. One-room studio, no cable, second-hand everything. Put 70% of my earnings into savings, 20% into learning, 10% into treating my mum to dinner once a month. The only person who never told me my dreams were too big. I studied like a man possessed, real estate markets, financing models, building codes, commercial permits. I didn't just want to design dreams anymore. I wanted to own them. 3 years in, I had saved enough to buy a foreclosure duplex. Run down, leaking, ugly, perfect. I lived in one side, renovated the other, rented it out, used the rent to fund the next property, and the next. By year 5, I had 7 units, a design studio downtown, and clients in 5 cities. Vanessa? I hadn't heard her name in years, but every time I walked past luxury buildings with penthouses, I remembered her voice. You still use prepaid data? That's cute. And I smiled, because what she mocked became the discipline that built my empire. One night I stood on the rooftop of a building I was remodeling. Rain in the distance, blueprints flapping in the wind, and my realtor called, "There's a penthouse about to hit the market. Top floor of the Whitestone, great view, pricey, but I think you'll want it." The Whitestone, her building. I didn't hesitate. Does it sit above Unit 4701? Pause. Yeah, why? I smiled, not smug, just ready. Let's start the paperwork, because this rebuild, it wasn't about rage, it wasn't about revenge, it was about elevation. Mine, above the person who once said I wasn't allowed to dream. She thought the sky was the limit. I was already looking down at it. The Whitestone wasn't just another luxury building. It was the address people whispered about over cocktails, an emblem of "you've made it," polished marble, 24-hour concierge, valet service that didn't just park your car, it judged your taste. I didn't need it for status. I needed it for symmetry. Because just 5 floors below that penthouse was Unit 4701, her address, Vanessa's. My realtor sent the digital packet, images, financials, market history. The former owner was relocating overseas. No debt. Fast close preferred. Perfect. I met the seller's broker in a sleek glass conference room downtown. No introductions, no small talk. Just a firm handshake and a single line. "You're Jordan Hale? The one behind Hailform ? I nodded. His smile twitched. "They say you design like your buildings are watching people, not the other way around." "Buildings do watch people," I replied. 2 days later, my offer was in. Full cash, no financing, slightly under asking, but with a closing guarantee in 5 days. The seller accepted before the ink cooled. I didn't feel triumph. I felt alignment. The next week, I walked into the Whitestone lobby. Same marble, same lighting, same energy of polished arrogance. But I wasn't here to gawk this time. I was here to own. The elevator opened. I pressed P8. My reflection stared back in the mirrored interior. Not a man pretending to belong, but one who chose where he belonged. The doors opened, and there it was. 12-foot ceilings, wraparound windows, the skyline pouring into the room like light through stained glass. I walked slowly, letting my shoes echo across the hardwood. No realtor followed me, no guide. This was mine. I stepped onto the balcony and looked down. There, 5 floors below, was her patio. Vanessa's. I remembered the nights she used to post stories from that space, wine glasses, filtered sunsets, the captions, "views worth dreaming for." Now, my view included hers. The next day, I called my interior team, told them I wanted something subtle, understated, but surgical. Make it warmer than hers, softer light, quieter lines. I want this space to breathe power, not shout it. As they measured, one asked, "Any reason you chose this unit?" I smiled, just tying up a chapter. I signed the final documents that night, sent them back with a simple email. Penthouse secured, keys delivered, elevation complete. And that was that. No party, no press release, just silence and ownership. Because the girl who once said I was too poor to dream big was now living beneath me. Literally. It was almost poetic. The way the elevator doors opened, and there she stood. Vanessa, 5 years older. Same sharp style, same unshakable confidence, until her eyes locked onto mine. We were at a Whitestone residence mixer, the kind with jazz quartets and champagne flutes too delicate to actually drink from. I hadn't planned on attending, but something told me it was time. She blinked first. Jordan? I nodded, calm as the skyline behind me. Didn't expect to see you here, she said, her voice higher than usual, nervous energy hiding behind practiced charm. I sipped my drink. Just moved in. Penthouse. The word hung in the air like thunder in a silent museum. She laughed, a little too loud. Wow, didn't realize Hailform was doing that well? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Her eyes searched for cracks in my silence. Finding none, she tried again. I always knew you had potential. You just needed focus. That's funny, I said, tilting my glass. You said I needed money. The smile froze on her lips. This was the girl who once called my dreams delusions, who told me real life wasn't made in basement studios or late-night sketches, who traded my plans for someone else's penthouse promises. She glanced down, not emotionally, physically, toward her floor, her unit, beneath mine. So, you really bought it? Bought it, rebuilt it, live in it. Her eyes darted to the side. Someone else had noticed us now. A few heads turned. That must feel satisfying, she said softly. I leaned in just enough to lower my voice. Vanessa, I didn't buy it for satisfaction. I bought it because I remembered exactly where I wasn't supposed to end up. She said nothing. There was no comeback, no defense, because standing in front of her wasn't the man she left behind. It was the man she never saw coming. The music swelled. The moment passed. Well, she said, gathering herself, I guess congratulations are in order. I raised my glass once more. No need. I already toasted to this years ago, when you walked away. I turned and disappeared into the crowd, not to escape, but because I had nothing left to prove. The funny thing about triumph? It rarely comes with fireworks. Sometimes it's just silence and a view. Every morning I stepped onto my private balcony, coffee in hand, overlooking a skyline she once said I could never reach. Below me, floor 42, her unit, her world. She'd closed the curtains a lot more now, not out of shame, but because success is loudest when it doesn't need to speak. No announcements, no viral posts, no look at me now campaigns, just presence. I started mentoring young entrepreneurs, the same kind of kids who were told their dreams were cute but unrealistic. The same way she once looked at mine. Hailform expanded, not with noise, but with purpose. We bought the building next door, turned it into a creative incubator, funded startups run by people who had once been laughed out of rooms like I had. Every time I signed a deal, approved a pitch, or offered equity to someone who reminded me of younger me, I smiled quietly. Because revenge doesn't always mean taking something away. Sometimes it's about creating something they can't touch. One day, my assistant buzzed in. There's someone here asking if you'd consider selling the penthouse. Says she lives below. I didn't even look up. Tell her the view is no longer available. Click. That was it. That was all it took. She didn't need to hear it from me. She could feel it in every creak of the floorboards above her. Every morning stretch where the sunlight didn't reach her window quite like it reached mine. Every silent elevator ride when she knew someone in the sky lived a story she didn't believe in. A story she once tried to edit out of existence. But the best part? I didn't win because I proved her wrong. I won because I stopped needing her to be right in the first place. She once said I was too poor to dream big. Now I wake up above her dreams, not in revenge, but in peace. Want to continue to Act 6, Reflection and Legacy, 400 to 450 words. You said, Act 6, Reflection and Legacy, 400 to 450 words. ChatGPT said, here is Act 6, Reflection and Legacy, 400 to 450 words, for your story. She said I was too poor to dream big, so I bought the penthouse above hers. Some nights I still stand by the window, not to look down, but to look back, not at her, at me. The boy who once measured success by someone else's approval, who thought validation was something earned by fitting in. But legacy, it's never built in someone else's shadow. It's built in the light you refuse to stop chasing. When she said I was too poor to dream big, she wasn't insulting my wallet. She was insulting my belief, my willingness to bet on myself when no one else did. And for a moment, I believed her. Until I didn't. Until the silence of rejection became the blueprint for resilience. Until her doubt became the architecture of my future. I don't tell this story to gloat, not to my team, not to the press, not even to the young interns who now rotate through the very company she once thought was beneath her. I tell it, if at all, for one reason, to remind anyone listening, you don't need loud beginnings, you need quiet belief, you don't need to prove them wrong, you just need to prove yourself right. The penthouse wasn't revenge, it was a reminder that where you start doesn't dictate where you rise, that the world will measure your worth by what it can see, your job title, your shoes, your address, but your value, that's built in the dark. In early mornings and late nights, in sacrifices no one applauds, in bets you place when the odds are stacked against you. Now, when people ask me for advice, I say this: dreams don't need permission. They need persistence. They don't need applause. They need action. She once told me I'd never make it out of the ground floor, that the sky belonged to someone else. But she was wrong, because while she was busy trying to marry into someone else's dream, I was quietly building mine. And now, she lives below a life she said I could never afford, while I wake up every day with peace above the noise.